Mike texted me, miscalculated gas situation, so I'll be a little late.
Oh, maybe he had to stop for gas. There you go.
We can start without Mike.
How low do you have to be for that miscalculation to cause you to stop at that moment?
You would never be that low.
Ooh, I play that dangerous game all the time.
Never.
I must let
game you could play.
I must let my gas tank get in the range in below 30 miles, like every time. I never fill up. What is that? That's actually a good game to play.
You sound so bad, Chris.
What? This is me sounding bad?
Yes.
Holy shit, do I sound better than 2 days ago?
You have Buffalo in your voice, the end of the Dolphin season in your voice. Put on the poll, please, as people trickle in at LeBatardShow. Which kind of person are you? The kind of person that will never let your gas tank get to within 30 miles of empty? Or the person that will always let your gas tank get inside of that?
Or to make it easier, have you ever seen your gas light?
Well, have you ever not
Which
seen
I
your
have
gas
not.
light?
I've never seen my gas light in any car I've ever owned.
If you live in a cold state, you have to keep a little bit of gas in your tank because there's a old wives' tale that your gas can freeze if you have, less than a quarter of a tank left while it's below freezing. Right, David?
I did hear that, and I did have cars in Wisconsin during college and lived in New York until I moved to Miami, but it was never an issue. I never had to investigate that because I would never, ever let it get to that point.
I've learned that gas tanks, this range that they say, you get like an extra 15 or 20 miles.
Of course.
I've learned from experience on multiple occasions. I have been driving home from work on 95, and I look down at my range, and it's just 3 little lines. Look, never a good feeling.
Let me tell you something. It's a couple of things. Number one, the old wives' tale is dumb because it doesn't take into account physics. Gas evaporates and freezes at different temperatures than water. So it being too cold cannot freeze gasoline.
What temperature does gas freeze at?
Don't ask him that. He has no idea.
I actually Googled it. It's minus 100
this
degrees.
level of
minus 100
Amin
degrees
is eyewash.
No. Look, just because I don't have the exact number off the top of my head doesn't mean I don't know the fact. like, let's not get lost in what
Yes, it does.
No, David. Let's not get lost in what the physics I'm saying is. The physics I'm saying is like 93, 94. The physics what I'm saying is it cannot freeze. Gas
Kelvin.
can't freeze.
Apparently it can, though.
The only people who say it the way you're saying it are people who don't really know it. Otherwise, you would give us the facts of it.
I did give you the facts. It can't freeze in regular
Okay.
human
That's a
temperatures.
Can we stop for a second? Yes.
Sorry. Have we started yet?
Yes, we started already. Can you both be right? Gas does indeed freeze, and we are unlikely. The old wives are idiots about this. We are unlikely.
The husbands too. Let's be fair.
Yes.
Well, there are no old husband tales. It's only these old
There should be.
wives.
And why is that?
Sexism. Because I'd like to have a tale. I'd like to have some tales so you can
Tell us a tale, Dan.
You are an old husband.
But you're
just old.
You're both right because it does freeze at 100 degrees below zero, but we're unlikely any of us to survive. Also, so do human beings at 100 degrees below zero. We also freeze. But I mean, you called David a flat out liar. And if I had to bet my life, I would say that it is the truth that David Samson has never seen his red, empty, close to empty gaslight because he's that anal about preparation, about making sure disasters don't happen.
So this is real easy. David, what's the longest you've ever driven continuous?
I did a cross-country road trip last May. It was the first road trip I'd ever done. Mm-hmm. And I was alone, and I recorded nothing personal from different cities, driving from Vegas back to Florida. And I would stop every 90 minutes.
All right, so every 90 minutes you'd stop? So
Yes.
90 minutes was the longest stretch you've ever driven.
I mean, sometimes it was
On that-
96 minutes, but generally
Yeah.
I would have an alarm that would go off on my phone every 90 minutes,
So-
reminding me to stop.
Now, if your tank was half full at that point, you would be like, doesn't matter. I'm going to go give it another half tank right there.
100%. Of course you do. Because when you're driving cross country, there's gas stations everywhere.
Not everywhere. There are stretches where like there's no gas stations.
This reminds me of the conversation that they had on NBA TNT. Oh God.
Wow.
NBA
Yeah,
on
this
TNT.
is what
Thursday,
happens.
Chris.
Yeah, it's not
Buffalo.
just Thursday.
No,
Chris.
please just let me
Thursday,
get to what I was getting to. This
It's
is funny.
Thursday, Chris, after Buffalo, after missing 3 days in the Cleveland airport, saying he's never
God.
flying Frontier again while in the Cleveland airport, and then the only flight available is
damn it.
Frontier. Finish your point. It's hard to get back on this treadmill when you've missed this much time and you're as polluted as you
Amin,
are.
remember when Shaq was talking about like trying to tell Kenny and oh my God, and Charles that if you should never fill your tank up fully, if you always fill up when it's half full, that's somehow safe. It was just
Saves
some
you money, yeah.
ridiculous thing Shaq was trying to like teach them, and they're like, "You're an idiot."
It was like you should put in $20 of gas at a time, and it'll save you money.
It's like, no, it's not how that works.
David,
There are many people who do that, actually.
are you unlikely to get under even half a tank of gas?
It happens, but very unlikely. So the getting under a half is the example of me seeing the gaslight.
Do you wish that you were different about these things? Because this seems like if you apply it to every aspect of your life, like it would be a pressure that's perpetually around you to just take care with things that don't allow you to put down your responsibility.
That's a great question, because the answer to me, it's completely natural and easy. I understand why people who are messy think that being clean is difficult. But if you're clean, it's not difficult to be clean. It's just who you are. It's actually far more difficult to be messy. Why would I give myself more anxiety when I live a life that is so full of anxiety with all the different things I'm trying to do and things I'm trying to accomplish? Why would I add Russian roulette gas to the list when that's such an easy thing to control? And in life, there's so many things you can't control. I never have to feel anxious about running out of gas. It's just not a part of my life. I don't have to feel anxious about finding my keys because they're always in the same place. Always. They never waver. So I've never lost my keys. I don't need to feel anxious about getting dressed in the morning because I wear exactly what's on top of the pile. So I think these things just make it easier to live, not more difficult.
But when your gas light goes on, you still have like 60 miles left before you run out. So
I've
it's like,
never seen my gas
but
light.
it's not like I don't feel
And
like.
by the way, what if you're wrong? What if it's not 60 miles?
Trust me,
and then you
I've
have to
learned. I
run
know what
to
it
a
is.
gas station. Are you ready to run to a gas station?
No, I'll just get gas when I have 20 miles left because it goes off when there's 60. I still have 4. I can still drive to work and back and then get gas after my gas light went on.
Chris,
Have you ever run out of gas?
Yes.
Okay, what did you do?
I called my wife. I don't know. What the hell? I did something. I probably walked if I was close enough.
Put that on the poll as well at LeBatard Show. Have you ever run out of gas? Because what David is saying there, the way that he does it, he never has anxiety. But the way that I do it, I never have anxiety either. Yeah. And it's just not something I ever worry about. When the light tells me to get gas, that's when I get gas.
It's a line, man. It's when you feel alive. Chris, let me ask you a question.
I love it.
Have you ever played that game with a car that doesn't tell you the exact number? Because for years, I did not have that luxury of
dangerous game.
7 miles, 30 miles. I had no idea. It's like you're driving, it looks low, and then the gas light comes on, and now I don't know when the light came on. I don't know if I noticed that it came on. I have to figure out just how much I can tolerate before I got to get to a gas station.
I play this game.
Why play that?
I play it once a month where I drive like about 37 miles from here to home. I got like 39 left on the range.
Yeah.
Let's roll the dice.
Yeah, roll them.
Let's have some fun
And
today.
then you do things like, I can't turn on the AC because that will impact the consumption of gas. So now, but here's the thing. If you roll the windows down and you're going too fast, the drag on the car from the wind coming into your car actually burns more gas than turning on your AC. You learned something today, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that's just something you heard.
something-
Who
No.
knows what
Wait
really...
a minute, time out. Are you telling me when the windows are open, you get worse gas mileage than when the windows are closed?
Depending on the speed.
Is this your theory?
Depending on your speed. If you're going, obviously, surface streets, not a big deal. But if you're on the freeway, you're doing 70 miles an hour, yes, that
Creates drag, yeah.
That drag is great, but consumes more gas than turning your AC. Now, I'm not saying turn your AC on full blast all the way Arctic temperatures.
I think that's an old husband.
Bill
No,
Nye,
it's
the
not.
science guy over here.
Do the
You
math.
have come up with so much crap today about cars, yet you don't worry about your gas level. It's very interesting to me.
'Cause I trust
You're like
science.
an enigma wrapped in a
I
conundrum.
trust science. That's all it is. Science tells me these things. So I'm like, all right.
David, if you had an all-electric, you would be even more stressed out, right? Because the charging stations are fewer and far between these days.
So back when I thought that these things mattered and I thought that it was cool what kind of car to have and that was some sort of status symbol, the Teslas were just starting and they were impossible to get and everybody wanted a Tesla. And for me, I never even considered the possibility of getting a Tesla. The thought of having to worry about where you're going to charge was second only to the reality of having to sit there while it charges, which takes longer than filling your car with gas. It was a straight no chance from the beginning.
You charge overnight, though. The whole idea is that you come home and you plug it in, and yes, it takes like 7 hours or whatever, but it's overnight, so... And if you charge every night, overnight, it's the same kind of concept. You'll never be down to almost 10 miles or whatever. It'll always be like, 2/3 or half full, depending on how much driving you did in the day.
It was just never worth it to me.
We can do some really good reporting here because our primary source has arrived. Mike Ryan, how much gas did you have in your tank? Why did you have so little gas in your tank? Are you someone who frequently pushes it close to the limit, wants to live on the edge?
No, I'm not. I'm very cautious when it comes to that. So I fell asleep a little bit later last night. I fell asleep at midnight because I had replied to every single one of the Arkansas tweets that I received last year about Kendall Briles with laughing face emojis. I was taking victory laps and I was DMing people that had harassed me.
A good positive way to spend the evening. There, you never run out of gas.
No, because he's an Arkansas lifer. So I wanted to make sure that I closed the loop on that. And so when my alarm went off at 6:25, I was like, let me get an extra 10 minutes, which is usually fine because I get ready quicker. But I forgot that I was really low on gas. And that is basically a 15-minute misstep if I have to get gas.
Really?
Yeah, because
Did you have enough to make it into the show but not back home, or you would not have even made it?
No, I wouldn't have made it.
How
to
do you
the
know?
studio.
Was the range?
I know.
Was the range smaller than the number
I've been
of miles?
driving for 20 years. I know.
I'm an adult.
It's got a little gauge, and I figured it out.
I don't have my restricted license anymore.
But didn't you notice it last night before you got home?
No, I didn't drive that car yesterday. I was working from home, so it had been 2 days since I realized driving back from soccer. I'm like, I'll get gas tomorrow when I go to the gym, but I got caught up in meetings. I didn't go to the gym, and now I've derailed the show because this doesn't seem super interesting.
But we did great. We did learn that
missed a whole thing.
We learned that David has never seen his gaslight before.
And it's not surprising to me. My guess is that we can come up with an assortment of questions that are about how organized or prepared he is, and we will get some funny answers and perpetual content out of it. Roy, you don't strike me as somebody who would risk it with the gaslight. Have you run out of gas?
No, because I'm responsible, Dan.
Do you ever see your gaslight?
Yeah, I've seen my gas light plenty of times, but I'm able to get to the gas station in time to fill it up.
That's right. It doesn't cause you any great anxiety the way that I'm telling you now that David Samson feels anxiety on your behalf for being for all the people in the world who are allowing themselves to see their gaslight. Samson absorbs your anxiety.
It's right on the edge of contempt, actually.
Wow. Nothing Personal is the name of the podcast. What is the most interesting thing you think you talked about this week and today? Because there's been plenty to talk about.
Well, I wanted to talk to you, if you guys don't mind, about what's going on with Sean Payton. And I'm trying to do a debate, and it's strange to do it with no one listening and no one to respond to you. The value of an NFL coach, the worth of an NFL coach. There's word out that Sean Payton would like somewhere between $20 and $25 million a year. And there are owners stepping all over themselves to bring him in. David Tepper of Carolina said, whatever you want, you got it. Rob Walton of the Denver Broncos, we're in. And Payton said, to start with, you need a great quarterback. Well, is Russell Wilson that? Does it really matter that the Carolina Panthers don't have a great quarterback? Is Kyler Murray a great quarterback, and so he should just go to the Cardinals? And so I was wondering what your view was of the worth of a head coach, because for me, it is not $20 to $25 million. He can't make Russell Wilson a better quarterback.
Mine has evolved over the years because I did think there were a whole lot of cavemen Mike McCarthy's afraid of fourth and short situations, trying to out-caveman each other. But throughout sports, there's been so many evolutions in so many places, and the football coach, the Kyle Shanahans of the world, the McVays of the world have changed my opinion because I'm watching something now that I don't even understand how they're doing what they do so well. But I don't know. Sean Payton, Mike, are we looking at him as quarterback whisperer? Because I would pay a coach if I could assign a value to he will make my quarterback better.
It does date back to his Eastern Illinois days. I will say that in the history of head coaching trades in the NFL, generally it's worked out. Gruden, Belichick, Parcells, there's a pretty proud history of going all in for the guy that you think should be steering the helm of your franchise. I don't personally regard Sean Payton in that class, but he is a Super Bowl winner.
Is it possible, David? Because I know you fired Manager of the Year Joe Girardi. I don't think of football coaches as baseball managers. Do you?
No, I've ranked them, and I have baseball managers as the lowest on the totem pole, then NBA coaches, and the top for me is an NFL coach. I've never actually put a soccer coach on that list. Where does a soccer coach go in terms of the ability to make a good team great or a great team good? What influence does a soccer coach have, Mike or Chris?
Oh,
or
massive,
anybody?
massive. There's the club that I follow, Chelsea, notorious for not really sticking with managers. They constantly flip them. And so you have a manager like Frank Lampard, who's wet behind the ears, doesn't have the big club experience, struggling. They're middle of the table. They bring in Thomas Tuchel, who'd previously made a Champions League final with PSG. Historically, they target these managers that burn the fuse out within 3 years, but they see their success. And Tuchel ended up taking that mid-table team to Champions League and winning the damn thing.
But are they calling plays? Are they impacting the actual match?
You see the impact of their tactics, their squad selection. Yes, it is massive.
Mike,
I view NFL players, NFL coaches as having a far greater impact on the game than any other type of manager.
Man, soccer's up there.
One of the things you always point to is in the World Cup, the U.S. lost to the Netherlands, and that basically the Netherlands manager
Louis
coach
Van Gaal.
circles around the United States.
He reveled in that. Yeah, he reveled. He took victory laps on coaching circles. I think tactics are immense when it comes to soccer.
Where did you arrive, David, on Payton?
I arrived that he's not going to make any of these teams better on his own, that they need better players, and that the real problem in Denver is not Nathaniel Hackett. The real problem was Russell Wilson, and I don't think Sean Payton can make him better.
Man, I think there is quite a large gulf between Nathaniel Hackett and Sean Payton. And I think you saw just by getting Hackett out of there, the Broncos look so much better. They have a championship-level defense. And you can point to a lot of the games, especially earlier in the year when they still felt like, we're odds-on favorites to make the playoffs, that games were just totally undone by Hackett's lack of experience.
But David, also, isn't part of this the advantage, the competitive advantage of being rich, if you are a rich owner, in that I'm not salary capped on staff, and I can afford to take swings, aggressive swings on a coach who I think can make a difference. Maybe not a $25 million difference. I think that's the conversation we're really having. It's not, is Sean Payton really going to save them? It's Sean Payton makes them better. Is it $25 million a year better? The answer is probably no, but when you have the wherewithal, isn't that where you attack the market inefficiency?
It's actually a big deal when the Dodgers, under their owner, their current owner, gave Andrew Friedman $10 million a year to be the GM and president of baseball operations. That caused more issues amongst the other owners than Steve Cohn giving Correa $315 million. And the reason is that all teams need GMs. They don't all need Carlos Correa. They can let the top of the market go and just figure out how to deal with the middle of the market and deal with the Tommy Phams of the world, which, by the way, that signing was far more troublesome to owners than even Correa. But when the salaries go up and owners do exactly what you're talking about, and that manifests itself through enhanced pro scouts, where you have more pro scouts than the other team, where you pay them more, where you're paying your player development people more, your minor league managers more, your international scouts more. All of that gives you an advantage because the best talent will then want to go to that team because instead of getting paid 50 grand a year, they're getting 80 grand a year. And that may not sound like a big deal, but it's a huge deal if you're the one making 50. And all of a sudden you're getting a talent suck all the way to the top end of the teams. And that's something that Roger Goodell has to watch for. And just like Rob Manfred is, when you've got billionaire owners who don't care if they're giving a coach $20 million versus $15 million, it impacts the entire market, and you've got to try to hold those salaries down.
Do you guys know, because I'm assuming something about the phrase that Mike used, wet behind the ears, but I don't know if a baby is checked for wet behind its ears. Like,
what are you talking about? The baby is dripping wet when it comes out. All it's wet on its head. It's wet on its stomach.
That's just physics, Dan.
Yeah, well, that's biology, but
where both actually. What is the origins of the phrase though? Does a doctor check behind the ears on a baby? To be inexperienced is to be wet behind the ears. Do you all know where that comes from?
It's the amniotic fluid from childbirth.
Okay, well, you guys are.
The doctor does not check behind the ears when a baby's born.
Hold on.
They suction out the nose and the mouth.
Hold on, David. I have to point out, because I did not have the exact term amniotic fluid. I was just guessing. I didn't know anything because I didn't have the exact fact of the name of the fluid. So I apologize for guessing.
Who are you apologizing to?
To David Samson.
And what is that voice? Who is that?
That's the voice of I'm doing an insincere apology.
Okay, I like
insincere apologetic fan talks like
What are you
this.
even talking about?
Well, because I said gas doesn't freeze at like 2 below, and you're like, well, what's the actual temperature? I said, I don't know. Off the top of my head, you surmised that I was just full of shit and just winging it.
It was 100 below that it freezes at.
I know. That's my point. That it would never freeze at a temperature in like Minnesota or whatever.
Is that the fluid that Ed Harris had put in his helmet so he could breathe in the abyss?
Movie Abyss. A 30-year-old movie. You sound like me making references or Amin.
Well, I think that's how. We're always word association, and I'm not even sure it's amniotic fluid, but the concept is the same.
How could it be? You think?
Are you talking about the fluid where a baby lives while it's inside the mom?
Right.
Or are you talking
embryonic
about the piece
fluid
of cauliflower that comes out after a baby's born?
No, it's amniotic. I think. What is it?
Don't ask
I'm
me.
just looking. Woman explain
got the
it.
baby bona fide.
Can you woman explain it?
Yeah.
It's embryonic fluid. Is it not the fluid?
It's amniotic, I thought. We just read it on
Amniotic fluid is
Google.
what you test, like you stick a needle in to take some out to
There's
do a
no
gene
more
test.
embryo when the baby's out.
Amniotic.
But no, the baby
baby now.
breathes in the fluid when it's.
Amniotic fluid is a
This
clear,
is
slightly
asinine,
yellowish
folks.
liquid
We have no
that
standing to
surrounds
have
the
this
unborn
conversation.
baby.
Oh, the
Bleep
abyss
this
one.
out. Bleep this all out.
We're here now.
The abyss fluid was slightly pink. Does that do anything for you?
Maybe it was placenta.
Yuck.
It's not embryonic fluid.
No, not
embryo,
in the sack.
The embryo.
No, that is a thing that exists, but that's not what we're talking
But
about.
that's
Can we
where
get
the
Dr. Ruth on the show?
That's how the embryo breathes
What an
inside
old
of the
reference. Holy
body.
shit.
Dr. Ruth.
Wait, do people not know who Dr. Ruth is?
I don't.
Put it on the poll at LeBatard Show. Do you know who Dr. Ruth is? Yes
She
or
was
no?
on I Love the 80s VH1 all the time.
Jeez, man. Come
Oh, yeah,
on,
that's right.
guys.
I'm like a dog
Sex
with a bone on
doctors.
this.
I
Old
went
lady.
to high school with Dr. Ruth's son. His name was Joe Westheimer. And he would teach us computers. And Dr. Ruth would come to class, and she was this very small, I think she's still alive.
She is. I think she is still alive. Yes. Joel Westheimer is not a look at me, Louie. Going to go.
That. I'm giving you the background of a story. Stop trying to fit in one of your gimmicks just because I'm on the show.
I'm with you, David.
credibility.
I'm with you, David. It's like the time I said I went to school with Jennifer Nascimento, who's the daughter
Who's
of
that?
Pele,
Daughter of who?
Pele.
the late great Pele.
Rest in power.
I never knew Pele's last name.
Nascimento. His name's Edson, by the way. Was it Edson Nascimento?
Edson Nascimento would not be a great soccer player.
That's why they changed their names.
Neither would Pele Nascimento.
There's an internet word generator that'll give you your Brazilian football name if you'd like to try that.
I already have mine.
What's yours?
Aminio. Come on now. That's not hard.
Amino acid.
David,
Anyway, Dr. Ruth
Amniotic.
was the first person to talk about sex. And she did it in a way where she would say penis and vagina, and she would talk about intercourse in a way coming out of this 4'7" woman from from Eastern Europe, and it was just the most bizarre thing, and she became world famous. And I don't know if she still is world famous. I guess not. But she was the original sort of purveyor of sexual information.
Amin, you're actually Amio.
No.
Yeah.
That's a good name.
No, Aminio with the H-O at the end.
No. Amio.
Amio is a good soccer name.
You talking about the acid again inside the
No, we're
sack,
talking
or is
about
this his
Brazilian
nickname?
soccer names.
Got it.
I wanted to ask you, because I saw, and take me through here, a bit of complicated subject matter. Trevor Bauer was suspended an unprecedented number of games. Trevor Bauer, a really unusual story and unusual person, publicly controversial before his sex scandals. He's arguing on behalf of rough sex, and he's being accused by a woman with some details that are horrifying of just beating her up during sex. His suspension was reduced almost by half. Tell me what you think is happening there and what's happening in the future with Trevor Bauer, because the Dodgers released him. He's a valuable pitcher. Will he ever play again?
Yeah, he will not ever play again. Let me start at the end. He will not pitch another inning in Major League Baseball, because no matter how desperate teams are, the way we look at it is, what are we going to say publicly when we sign him? What is the press conference going to look like? What is going to be our point of view, that we want to win, or that we have some injuries, or we want depth in our starting rotation? So here comes this person, Trevor Bauer, who's not been contrite, who has been fighting the entire time, saying that it was totally consensual, that beating, and it was not domestic violence. People are getting it wrong. He was not suspended for violations of domestic violence. He was suspended for violations of the sexual assault policy. And that's what he did. And it doesn't matter that he was not charged criminally. That is not the threshold that baseball uses or the arbitrator uses in figuring out his punishment. And when he was suspended 2 years by Rob Manfred, that was knowing it would be reduced in an arbitration. And so it got reduced to 194, which is the longest suspension in the history of that policy. And no owner wants to touch that.
I've been doing a random name generator for everybody.
These are great.
In the studio so far. I haven't done Samson yet. I'll work on that. But Amio is Amin's. We got Coutinho for Chris Cote, and for Roy we have Rildo.
Where's Rildo?
And for Dan we have Dildo.
What's Jessica's?
Smetanandro.
Yeah,
it's a mouthful.
yeah.
I don't know.
That's
it's not
too much. You got to
too many
re-random
letters.
generate it.
It's like 11 letters.
I'll re-random name generate Big Ego. What is that? That's David Samson.
There you go. That from the makers of Insincere Apologies.
We like that part.
I never claimed to know about physics.
It's just business.
Can we please have a conversation between Insincere Apology Man and Insincere Laugh Man? I'd like to hear them just talk for a moment, if you don't mind. I mean,
Oh, Dan, I can't talk about anything if I don't have the exact facts on hand. Isn't that right, David?
God, are you insecure and defensive? I love it.
Not at all. Not at
Then
all.
Why do you keep talking about this? I just don't think it's
Well, 'cause Dan
necessary
asked. 'Cause Dan
to talk
asked.
about the
Dan
physics
asked
of
for you guys to do
gas.
improv, and you just said
Good
no.
improv by you,
Keep up.
Samson.
Yeah.
Keep up.
what happened to Insincere Laugh Man?
Yeah. He forgot to laugh insincerely.
Amniotic.
I actually don't give a fuck.
Well, that
Ow.
sounds.
Wow.
Now it sounds.
Now
Now
it
it
sounds
sounds.
insecure
Now,
and defensive.
you know what? Between the two of you, I don't know which of you gives a fuck less. Which brings us to this week's
Oh, my God.
film review, because Amin said he watched it last night. And what was your appraisal? I told you. I actually had the conversation, Mike, with Amin when he walked in here, where I said the book that I read. He watched the documentary. He said the documentary sucked, and I said, well, the book was good. And he's like, no, it wasn't, and I didn't read it.
Didn't read it. Don't need to read it.
What?
It is the basest pablum self-help crap that you find everywhere. All of these books, the whole documentary. There were only 2 instances where I was like, that was interesting.
Can I have a little bit more background? I would love to know what you're
Can
talking
we give
about.
the name of the movie?
Yes,
first?
let's give the name of the book.
Can we give some sort
like
of
Jeopardy.
platform
What
to the
is
The
listeners?
Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Well, they don't say fuck. They say F bleep.
Oh,
F
Katie
double
Porter's book.
That's one of
K.
those like classic airport bestseller books that is probably, I haven't read it, but I know it's just some vapid
Now
bullshit.
both of you have not read it. I have read it, and I
Jessica Smetana
both
called
of
it
you-
vapid bullshit. And put that on.
It's like critiquing a
Smetana
movie you've
intro.
never seen. I don't
Noted
understand
book
how you can
reviewer.
comment, Amin.
Vapid bullshit is a great
I've read
review.
enough of those airport books to know when I see a cover like that, I'm like, I don't know about
All
this.
of that said, when I saw the trailer to the documentary, David, it didn't interest me. I thought it seemed empty.
Do you know the crazy thing when you're panning for gold and you take that colander and you put it in the dirt and you sift away all the crap and out comes one little nugget of gold? Does that not make the digging worthwhile?
I thought there were interesting bits in that book
too.
that were counterintuitive.
And there were interesting things in the documentary. You're right. You have to sift through a lot of crap, but you certainly can't comment on a movie if you've never seen it or a book if you've never read it. I mean, you try to read the Monarch Notes or Cliff Notes or Spark Notes and pretend you've read a book, but you don't get the nuance. The point of this documentary and of this book is really about understanding what it is that gives you what we're all trying to get rid of, which is anxiety, which is the nervousness that comes with mortality or with the daily grind of wondering what we're doing here and why are we living and what's our purpose. That's the age-old question. And the entire book will not give you your answer, but there are moments in there, just like there are moments in the documentary that will. And that's why it's worth it, because everybody who sifts for gold gets a little nugget from a different place. And that's what this movie can do for you.
It was peak navel gazing of middle class white America, figuring things out and thinking they found out like some great life lessons. You're right. There are two things from the documentary that I'm assuming were in the book that I was like, that was pretty interesting. One actually fit in with what he was trying to say, and one was an interesting story, but didn't really connect to me to his messaging. The interesting story was the one, David, that you texted me about, which is the Japanese soldier who did not know World War II ended and was on an island and was, anytime anyone tried to approach him, he was combative. And it took 30 years after the war ended before he finally accepted, oh yeah, this thing's over or whatever. It was interesting. I didn't see the connective tissue with the rest of the doc. The story of the dude from Megadeth, now that I was like, okay, that's really interesting. And that is kind of a life lesson where this guy achieved his life's goals and dreams beyond his wildest dreams. But in his mind, they were all disappointments because they weren't quite up to snuff to the thing that he was trying to compete against, which was Metallica, the band he had been kicked out of.
Yeah, Dave Mustaine.
Yeah, so I'd never known that story.
expert.
I'd never heard that story. And based on his conversation of happiness, I was like, wow, that is interesting. That is an interesting way to look at it. Everything else, in terms of the life lessons this guy is trying to impart, horseshit. And that's why I was like, if you're telling me this guy wrote a book, clearly this doc is based, however it was shot, however it was portrayed is one thing. But I'm just saying the content, the source material is in here. It doesn't impress me one bit. Everything was a story about, I knew a guy named Jimmy, and Jimmy knew everything, and it turns out Jimmy was a fraud. I knew a guy named Tom.
Who's that guy?
This is him. This is my impression of this smug bastard sitting there with
That's a terrible
with a drink.
Smug bastard guy.
With a drink and like, oh, they have the little, what's the thing called? The little
Koozie.
no when
Amniotic.
when you have like
the
a
snifter.
yeah, the snifter and the glass there, and he's always got this smile on his face, like, and Jimmy knew everybody. I mean, everywhere he went, and it turns out Jimmy didn't know anything. He just had everyone fooled because Jimmy didn't have a sense of shame. He was entitled to I'm like, I don't give a damn about your anecdotal life lessons that you learn in Austin, Texas, wherever the hell you're from. Total pablum.
Amin,
Yeah.
it's David. Are you okay?
Vapid bullshit and a total pablum.
Yeah.
He's mad, and
Is
his
Jimmy Stugotz?
condescending,
Pretty much.
smug snifter guy feels a little bit like condescending Steelers Zinfandel drinking woman.
I mean, I don't know what
I think we need to ask whether Amin's okay. I think people don't ask that enough.
Samson's
Amin,
the
are
enemy
you
of
okay?
improv.
Is this yeah, okay? Are we doing a bit here?
No,
no,
just an
David,
enemy
I'm
of
not
it.
okay.
No, but
It's not yes and with
His
with
table.
David.
His table is where improv goes to die. Yeah. I want to talk to David about a movie that I saw last night.
No, you're not going to let him talk about
What?
This horse shit that we watched.
I already gave you my review. I'm sad that you are going to stop people from sifting and finding their own nugget here. I really am, because they're going to listen to your point of view, thinking that for whatever reason you have more credibility on movies than I do because of a podcast you have, and it's ridiculous. You're making decisions for people that are based on your anger. That you did not get.
No. They have an algorithm that dictates what they talk about on their podcast. What's the name of your podcast?
Cinephobe.
What's Cinephobe?
Oh, it's the podcast where Zach Harper and I review movies that are poorly rated on Rotten Tomatoes and try to ascertain whether they're accurately rated or maybe didn't get a fair shake. Cinephobe, produced by Anthony Mays. Get it wherever you get podcasts. We're towards the end of Liam Neeson month, and we did the film Taken 2 a week after we did Taken 3. So get that wherever you get podcasts.
That was
Have you
amazing.
done Jagged Edge on Cinephobe?
Timing.
Have we done Jagged Edge?
Do you remember Liam Neeson was in that?
I do not.
Mike Ryan.
Now I've got Liam Neeson in the late '90s R&B group, Jagged Edge.
I do. I do.
Just him and his voice saying, "Where the party at?"
What is the movie? What is the movie you wanted to talk with David about?
I want to talk about The Menu, which I really enjoyed this movie, and I saw at the end it was produced by Adam McKay. This movie really was unique. I had never seen anything quite like this. I guess we could call it. It's more of a dark comedy, I think, than anything, but some people are trying to market it as like a thriller type. I love this movie. I don't want to give too much away, but these highfalutin folks get invited to a dinner at this prestigious restaurant with this highly regarded chef for an exclusive dinner, and all sorts of things happen. Put it lightly.
That's
No
a good,
spoilers.
it's a
To
good
put it
trailer.
lightly.
Hijinks ensued. Yes.
Yeah, to put it lightly, I thought the acting was so strong in this, and it was just such an original idea. And we've said on this show about how often there aren't original movies being made anymore. This was a breath of fresh air, I thought.
Put that together with Triangle of Sadness, and you've got yourself a double feature of originality and of class warfare. That's really all that The Menu is, and same with Triangle of Sadness. So there's a lot of movies being made right now that, in my opinion, are mirroring what's going on in our country, if not the world, where people are beginning to not just speak truth to power, but to try to understand why the powerful people have power. And The Menu was marketed as a musical or comedy by the Golden Globes, put in that category, and I vehemently disagree. It's neither a musical nor a comedy. It is dark. There are
I think it's a comedy.
smiles.
I think it's a comedy,
Boy,
David.
did you laugh out loud once?
Yeah. Oh, several times.
Oh, I did not.
Oh.
I smiled, but I couldn't get myself to laugh because I was too anxious about where this was going. And boy, was I right to be anxious.
Yeah, I do like movies that you don't really know what to expect when you're going into it, and it keeps you on your heels. And if you go into The Menu without knowing what to expect, that movie will have you reeling pretty much early on.
I thought it was a movie like The Bear or like Chef. I had because it starred a chef. That's all I knew about it because I didn't read a review. And Ralph Fiennes, I found it strange that he would take the part of being a chef at this point in his career. Of course, 2 hours later, I knew exactly why he took the part and why he got nominated for a Golden Globe for it. Outstanding. And Anna Taylor-Joy, people are not happy with her, and I am. She's really good at what she does, starting with The Queen's Gambit, made a whole movie career now. And she becomes the central character of this movie. And so you should watch it.
Man,
It's available now.
For me, Nicholas Hoult, it just totally seals us. He's incredible in About a Boy, which I think is Hugh Grant's best film. And he's really grown
That was
into
him?
Yeah, he was the boy in About a Boy, which is just a really powerful movie. He is hilarious in this. This is absolutely a dark comedy. He's the one that brings all the levity to this film. He knocks it out the park. But I'm also the type of person that thinks American Psycho is a dark comedy.
Have you ever seen The Great on Hulu?
Yeah, he's awesome in it.
That is probably the same type of role. It's like funny, but also he's a terrible. He's
he's like Joffrey if Joffrey had a sense of humor.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. If Joffrey was a foodie, he'd be played by
David,
Nicholas Hoult.
which one's better, Triangle of Sadness or Menu as a skewering of the wealthy?
Triangle of Sadness.
Which one's more of a dark comedy?
Triangle of Sadness.
You liked it
Woody
better.
Woody Harrelson is in that movie, and he plays the captain of a ship. And it's fascinating what he's become. I was trying to think of my top 5 examples of sort of comedic lightweight actors who were TV actors back when being on TV meant you weren't a movie star, who have become major movie stars in their own right, where Robin Williams, to me, will always lead that list. You know, going from Mork and Mindy to Dead Poets Society means you win. But when you look at what
more than
Woody
Tom
Harrelson
Hanks,
has done,
he wins more than Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks from Bosom Buddies is another top 5 for sure.
Jason
With Peter
Bateman.
Scolari. What was Jason Bateman?
I mean, Jason Bateman has just become a movie star, has he not? Or do you think he was in Family Ties? Was it?
No,
he
that
was
was
in
that
one.
was his
That was
sister.
his
That was
sister.
his
But,
sister.
but he was in. Was he not in
Hogan
something
family.
as a kid? He was something in something as a kid. He was a child star, correct?
He was a child star.
Was he with Alphonse Ribeiro in that show?
Alfonso.
Oh, Silver
Yeah,
Spoons.
Silver
Was he in
Spoon.
Silver Spoons?
Yes.
Is that where he started?
No, that was Ricky Schroeder.
No,
Schroeder.
but I think
was
he
in
was
that too.
also in it. I think he was the
Okay.
star. Who
I
else?
love
is,
Jason Bateman, but he's not in that category.
really
but
quick-
Woody Harrelson, I mean, I think he may be now.
David, I did some research. Liam Neeson was never in Jagged Edge. He was in the
didn't
Delta
play-
Force, though, uncredited.
In what?
Delta Force, the one with
No, he played the homeless guy who was charged with murder.
I'm looking at his filmography, and I looked at the cast
What's
of the movie.
the name of the movie that was his first movie where he was a mute? He didn't speak. It was with Cher, and it's his first movie. Liam Neeson's first movie.
His first movie was a movie called Pilgrim's Progress, and it was a 16.
no, David isn't saying to look and find his first movie on IMDb. He's saying find the first movie where David discovered him that David thinks of as his first
Correct.
movie.
I play that game with Dan all the time.
Wait, that wasn't his first movie? This does not sound familiar to anyone where there was a homeless guy who did not commit a crime but was accused of committing a crime and had to go to trial. And he sat there and they had to clean him up and comb his hair.
Suspect. Yeah.
Damn it.
Dennis Quaid, Cher, and Liam
That
Neeson.
would also.
What year was that?
1987.
And that's not the beginning of his career?
No, he had he was in the Delta Force, first of all. He had about 10 movies at that point,
That was after
Wow.
Miami Vice.
Miami Vice, though. That put him on the map.
as far as a TV role.
He was a great villain in Miami Vice. Dan, who was your favorite Miami Vice villain?
Oh, I got to think about that one for a
By the way,
minute.
his character's name was Sean Caroon.
Was it Bruce Willis?
And the episode was called When Irish Eyes Are Crying. Oh, my God.
You got to give me some time to think about this. Suspect is also the name of about the last, how I described the last 10 minutes of this.
Was Phil Collins a bad guy in Miami Vice for an episode?
Phil Collins was in Miami Vice. I don't know if he was a bad guy, though.
Was he selling guns in that one?
Yeah,
I got
makes him a
called
bad
out
guy.
for calling Phil Collins an anti-Semite. And it turns out that he may just be pro-PLO, and it was something that was promulgated by the Jewish community to not listen to Genesis. And I just got called out for it within a week since our last show when Phil Collins came on the radio and I pointed out to someone I was with that he's an anti-Semite, and I was questioned. And then there was a research done, and it may just be an absolute Bubameister.
So you apologized? You just got it
Yes.
wrong?
His apology.
Phil Collins, let this reach your ears from across the land. Across the waters.
Nothing.
If you can hear this, sorry. I've put together a top 5 of my favorite dark comedies. Okay, I'm excluding all Quentin Tarantino films because they're all kind of dark and they have laughs, but I wouldn't classify any of them as dark comedies. So here we go. Number 5, Fargo.
Good movie.
Number 4, Fight Club.
How's that a comedy?
I said this is my favorites.
all right.
These are my favorites.
All right.
Number 3, Adaptation.
Comedy. I thought it was a great movie. I didn't think of it as a comedy.
Oh, it's a dark comedy.
I think Mike is just laughing at things and thinking that means it's a comedy.
No. Adaptation is definitely a dark
These are
comedy.
great movies.
These are great movies. No, there's no argument there.
Dark comedy is damn near my favorite genre.
Okay.
Gun to my head.
Okay.
Which is
A dark.
What they do in a
yeah,
dark comedy.
yeah. Number 2, The Lighthouse.
That is so bleak. It is not a comedy.
That is
not
one
a
of the
comedy.
funniest goddamn
it's
movies you'll
one
ever
of the-
see.
It's one of the. It is, but it's
It is.
one of the bleakest I've ever seen too.
That is a dark
Do
comedy.
you have Revenant as number 1?
No, The Revenant didn't make it. Wolf of Wall Street, OLI, though. Number 1, American Psycho.
I mean, don't make that joke.
Phil Collins was in the season 2, episode 11 of Miami Vice called Phil the Shill. A British television personality who has dealings with a major cocaine dealer is targeted by cracking it up. So he was a British television personality.
So not a bad guy?
Not an arms dealer.
Not an arms dealer. That could have been a front, though.
A second apology issued to Phil Collins today for bad information the characters of this show have disparaged him with. Thank you, David, for being on the show.
See you, Gary.